All right, so I am doing my presentation on my first lesson in my unit plan, which is math. And this specific lesson is converting fractions, decimals, and percents. So the class profile, it's seventh grade special ed kids. It's an AET time, which is about 20 to 30 minutes before their lunch period. So we give passes to them and call them to this AET time to work on stuff that they are struggling with. So there are 8 students, 3 girls and 4 boys, and they're all on IEPs. One has communication goals and one has a homework goal. A lot of the students' IEPs don't really state anything about math goals or struggling with math standards. That's usually more comprehension and English and stuff like that. But we're in that class and we pulled them out because they were struggling. So that's why. So the learning goals, my standards come from the Ohio Standards, and it's seventh grade. So in problem context, understand that rewriting an expression in an equivalent form can reveal and explain properties of the quantities represented by expression and can reveal those quantities are related. So the central focus of my lesson is that students will better understand how to translate fractions, decimals, and percents. The learning outcome of my lesson is students will do better in the classroom and get above 85% of the problems on the Skittles worksheet right. Academic language is fractions, decimals, percents, equivalent, and translating. Prior learning, the students have been learning about this concept in class the past week, and it's part of Unit 1, so this is just a little refresher, and some of them were confused, so that's the whole goal of this lesson. So in my activities and procedures, the students will start off by getting a short notes sheet. And these notes I designed to be guided notes along with the video that we will watch here in a second. And the reason why I picked guided notes was because students will be able to focus more on the content of the video rather than worrying about writing the notes down. So as you can see, there's a lot of blank spaces, and these go in order with the video, so they just need to fill in. And I noticed when I was teaching this lesson, they were kind of filling it in like even faster than the video because they knew what it was talking about. So that was actually pretty cool. So they will have those notes with them while they watch the video. Now you won't be able to listen to the video in this, but I have closed caption on anyway because it helps the students who maybe not learn as well when it comes to audio, and they can look at the closed caption. So I'm going to click on this and just go through it.
Write 18% as a decimal and as a fraction. Write 18% as a decimal and as a fraction in simplest form. So let's do it as a decimal first. So 18%, 18% is the same thing as 18 per 100 or 18%. I'm actually separating out the percent word. It's probably one word, but I'm writing it as literally per cent. Cent means the same thing as 100, so this literally means 18 per 100. Actually, I said I would do the decimal first, but we can start putting it into a fraction first. 18 per 100 as a fraction literally means 18 per 100. We're doing the fraction first. This literally means 18 per 100, or 18 hundredths. Now, if we want to do it, from here we could go straight to a decimal, or we could do this fraction in simplest form. Let's do the decimal first, just because that's actually where I said I would do first. So let's do that first. So how do we write? So this is the same thing. This is the same thing as 18 hundredths. Hundredths. 18 hundredths. And we know how to write that in decimal form. It's 0.18. You could view this as 1/10 and 8 hundredths, which is the same thing, or 10 hundredths and 8 hundredths, which is 18 hundredths. So this is written in decimal form. And if we write it as a simplified fraction, we need to see if there is a common factor for 18 and 100, and they're both even numbers, so we know they're both divisible by 2, so let's divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. So we have 18 divided by 2 over 100 divided by 2, and we're going to get 18 divided by 2 is 9. 100 divided by 2 is 50. And I don't think these guys share any common factors. 50 is not divisible by 3. 9 is only divisible by 3 and 1 and 9. So this is the fraction in simplest form. So we have 18% is the same thing as 0.18, which is the same thing in simplest form as 9/50ths. Now, I went through a lot of, I guess, pain here to show you that, look, this really just comes from the word, from percent, from per hundred. But if you ever were to see this in a problem, the fast way to do this is to immediately say, okay, if I have 18%, you should immediately say anything in front of the percent, that's that anything, whatever this anything is, this should be equal to that anything. In this case, it's 18 over 100. And another way to think about it, you could view this as 18.0%. So this is 18.0%. When you want to convert this, I just added a trailing zero there. If you want to, just so that you see the decimal really, if you want to express this as a decimal without the percent, you just move this over to, you move the decimal to the left 2 spaces. So if we move the decimal to the left 2 spaces, 1, 2, this becomes 0.18. 0.18. Or you could immediately say that, look, 18% as a fraction is 18 over 100. When you put it in simplified form, it's 9 over 50. But you should also see that 18 over 100, and we have seen this, is the exact same thing as 18 hundredths, or 0.18. Hopefully this made some connections for you and didn't confuse you.
All right, so obviously that would be a lot better if you could hear the sound, and I would be playing the sound in the class. So the reason why I picked that video as a preface to the lesson is because it's short and brief and it gets straight to the point, and the students in this classroom are really familiar with Khan Academy, so it's nothing they haven't seen before. Once the video is over, I will go over the blanks with them just to make sure they have the right ones, because they will be using these notes to assist them when they're doing the actual activity. So after I go over the notes with them and make sure they have all the right blanks filled in, I will go through a short PowerPoint reviewing the steps and how to translate between decimals, fractions, and percents. The PowerPoint also has practice problems, so students will have their math notebooks out to write the notes rather than having guided notes. I actually added this in after I taught the lesson because I thought it'd be really beneficial for the students to have some extra practice with problems. So I just have a quick example of what some of the practice problems on the PowerPoint would look like. So here's like an example. So I have 30 M&Ms, 8 of them are yellow. What percent of the M&Ms do I have? So 8 divided by 30 is 0.26, and then we know that's 27%. I would talk about these examples more in depth and have the students walk me through them just so they have a little bit more understanding about what they're going to be doing in this next activity. So then I'll have the students get in pairs. One group might be a group of 3. In this class, especially, pick intentional pairings, because if I let them pick partners themselves, they'll pick their like best friend in the class and they will get absolutely nothing done. So picking intentional pairings will help them, be more focused with the activity. And it's a short activity, so they should be able to get through it pretty easy without getting distracted. So once they're in their pairs, having their desks scoot together, I'd pass out a pack of Skittles to each group and the worksheet that goes along with it. So I actually passed out 1 pack of Skittles per person and then just had them set 1 pack aside and then open the other pack so they each have some to eat when they're done. So I passed out a worksheet that looks a little something. Well, it looks exactly like this, actually. So I started by reading the directions out loud. Open your bag of Skittle and count the total numbers and put it here. So I gave them time to open their bags and count the Skittles and put that total number there. They actually all got a number of 15, so that helped. Then I read the directions more. So now pick a color of Skittles and count how many of them, and then write a fraction over the total. Then figure out the decimal and percentage of that color of Skittles. So we did the first one together. We picked a color and I asked them how many there was, and then I told them to put it over the total, which was 15. They used their calculators to find the decimal and either used their calculators to find the percentage or just moved Them two spaces to the right, I had them use calculators because they have a lot of trouble with basic math facts, and the point of the lesson is to get this down rather than focusing on improving their basic math skills because we are doing that throughout the year. So this is just a lesson set aside to help them with what's going on in their inclusion class, but they are still continuing to work on their basic math skills in other settings. So like I said, do the first problem with them and then have them do the rest as a team, the pair and the group of 3. And my job then will be walking around and assisting and monitoring the groups, making sure they're on task, asking questions when they have them, and kind of going around and asking them to explain why they got the answers, whether they're right or wrong, just making sure they know the procedures. So once the worksheet is filled out, I have the students turn in the notes in the worksheet, and I go through and I grade them and look them over and then give them back as soon as I can so they can use those notes and that worksheet to help them study and do activities in their inclusion classes. So the differentiation, working with groups was really great because they were able to help each other. So if one student didn't understand it, the other could help. And then at that point, if none of them really knew what was going on, I was there to monitor and assist them when it was needed. Having practice problems and notes beforehand helped them kind of get that procedure down. And the practice problems had them put that procedure into practice. And like I said earlier, I had added that PowerPoint after the video, after doing the lesson, because I felt that doing more practice problems, maybe in a different context, would have helped them understand more. So that video and PowerPoint were great examples of multimedia, and the video specifically had that audio closed caption if they prefer reading the closed caption rather than listening, and it was really clear and did step by step and was brief and got straight to the point. And that PowerPoint, like I said, just provided extra examples. So the learning conditions is academic extended time, which is that time before lunch. So it's very short. Materials are a pack of mini Skittles, pencil note worksheets, math notes, Skittles worksheet, and napkins, and computer injector for the video. So the assessment was just the completion of the Skittles worksheet, usually just giving points for completion because I was helping them and I knew that they got it. The summative was a unit test on chapter 2, and we actually have not taken that yet. We're on lesson 4 out of 8 in the inclusion class. So my reflection, the content was a lot thrown at them, but they understood because they learned it before. The delivery is really fast paced for some students and they could not keep up, but I was good at working with groups after that and making sure the students that had kind of trouble with that fast pace made sure they got it and understood. Next was changes to improve the lesson. I would probably split this lesson up into a couple days, couple AET times, having that video and those notes one day and then doing the Skittle activity the next. So it's just slower pace, easier for them to understand and catch up. Next step would be a lesson on different ways in solving those types of problems and using translating percents into decimals, because that's just one way and there's about 3 more that they still need to learn. And that's it.